Testament, Apostle John wrote 5 books, a Gospel, 3 Epistles with deeds, love, and revelation. He had first been a follower of John the Baptist, but then became one of the first 5 disciples of our Lord Jesus. He was one of the 3 disciples of the inner circle and the one closeness to Jesus. Five times he is spoken of as the disciples who Jesus loved. He lived in Ephesus and heard he lived to a great age and was the last apostle to die. The first epistle of John was written about 90 AD from Ephesus. In this epistle, he took a strong stance against the error of Gnosticism. Agnosticism was the philosophy that attacked the truth of the incarnation. It taught that Jesus was either a theophany who was not human at all, or he was the natural son of Joseph and Mary, upon whom the Christ came and is baptized. They thought that matter was evil, which resulted in the extreme asceticism and antinomianism. John answered this error by emphasizing the incarnation and the power of the example of Christ's life. In 1 John chapter 1, verse 1 to 3, John introduced his epistle with a strong statement affirming the truth of the incarnation. In his gospel, John called Christ the Logos, the living word. His epistle, John spoke of Christ as being the word of life. In conclusion of this epistle, John wrote concerning Jesus Christ, "This is the true God and eternal life." In 1 John chapter 5, verse 20, "Eternal life has no beginning nor ending. Therefore, this life was with the Father, but in the incarnation this life was made visible." In John 1, chapter 1 and 14, "The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us." John's purpose in writing the epistle was that they might experience full of joy. There is no joy greater than the joy of knowing the Lord.
Amen.
As a person experiences fellowship with Jesus Christ and receiving eternal life. John declared 2 things that God is light in 1 John chapter 1 and verse 5, and love the 1 John chapter 4 verse 8. This truth reveals God, purity and holiness. God, absolute perfect holiness. In Him, there is not even shadow of darkness. As a Christian, draw near to God of imperfection are clearly revealed. In 1 John verse 1, chapter 6 to 7, anyone who would claim that he is sharing in the life of Christ and is still living a life of sin and the darkness is lying. Only as we walk in the light as Jesus in the light are able to share common life.
Yes.
As we walk in the light, we are cleansed from every sin by the blood of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
In 1 John chapter 1, 8 to 10, in this epistle, John 4 times accused the false teacher of being liar. God has said that one has sinned. If we deny this, we are only deceiving. We should carefully note that this is not referring to a willful abiding in open sin. If we are born of God, we shall be delivered from a life of bondage. Being human, however, there are many imperfections which we will reveal by the light. If we confess this, there will be cleansing and forgiveness. To experience conviction is absolutely essential. An advocate is one called to the aid of another. If any man sin, there is a righteousness advocate to cleanse his cause. A single act of sin, not the abiding in sin, which is perfect to hear Jesus righteous, and this give him the right to pledge the cause of the child of God. Who fails? Jesus Christ, through his death on Calvary, was able to satisfy the justice of God from men, while his advocacy is for believers only. In 1 John chapter 2, verse 3 and 6, there is no true test that will prove whether or not we know God. If if we keep His command and live as Christ Himself lived. If we obey His commandment and the royal law, love thy neighbor as thyself or love another, the darkness of our lives disappear and Christ's light shone in. If we have our brother or the people around us, we are walking the light. If our heart full of hatred, we hate our brother, our people around us, we do not know where we are going because darkness has blinded us. We cannot see a love of God, but our heart full of hatred. At the same time, we cannot live in the darkness at the same time in the light. We cannot serve two masters. We need to choose one. But if we say, I know Him, I love Him, but we disobey His command, we are liar and stranger to the truth. Now, if we know I love God, we keep His command and do those things pleasing to God. And 1 John 3:24, and He hath keeping His commandments well unto Him, and He in Him, and hereby we know that He obedient in us by the Spirit which He hath given us.
Amen.